Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick from the city of Hampton. And today we're going to talk about an issue nobody really likes to talk about, but we have to face it, and that is flooding and flood insurance. My guest is going to explain it all to us. He's Ben McFarlene from the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. That's so long.
Yes, it is.
Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So as we're taping this, it is hurricane season. You know, so far, it hasn't been too bad.
So far.
But you never know. And as people are beginning to think about that, what we try to remind people is flood insurance. Why?
Well, so flood insurance is the best way that people can protect themselves if there is some sort of flood event, whether it's a hurricane, a really high tide, a massive rainstorm. Most normal policies for your homeowner's insurance or even your renter's insurance policy, they don't cover flooding. There's a whole history about why that is.
Wow.
But they don't.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it would have to be a separate policy. Mm-hmm. But my mortgage company doesn't say I have to get flood insurance, so I don't, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot. So some people are required because of the type of mortgage they have, where the bank will require them to get flood insurance if they live in what's called the special flood hazard area or the 1% annual chance or the 100-year flood zone. There are a lot of different names for it. But if you're not in one of those mapped zones, if FEMA does not map you into one of those areas, then you're usually not required to get flood insurance, but it really is the best idea. You really need to understand a little bit about what your own risk is, but know that the maps are not the be-all and end-all. They don't tell the whole story, and we know here in Hampton Roads especially, we're low, we're flat, we're right on the water. We know the water can come and get to us from many different directions, and so having flood insurance policy is really the best way you can protect yourself.
So I think people think of it as like a coastal thing, or if I live on the water, but what we've seen, I mean, the last 2 to 5 years is a lot more flooding due to rainfall.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, it's not just about if you're right on the water. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people, you know, we live in Hampton Roads. We're right on the water. A lot of people here, we see the water every day. And I think a lot of people that live on the water, they're familiar with that risk, right? They see the rising and falling tides every day. They know what life is like when a big storm is coming in because they can see the water out there. But for people that live inland, they might not be thinking about that they're at risk of flooding. But if you get a large amount of rain, you know, our storm water systems are only designed to handle a certain amount. And if that amount gets exceeded, then that water's got to go somewhere. And unfortunately, sometimes it goes onto people's property.
And, you know, a lot of Hampton is not just low-lying, but also, you know, our storm system was built a long time ago, and things have changed a bit since then.
A little bit, yeah. So that's a number of our cities have stormwater systems that are decades old. They were built in a different time. They were built with different assumptions about kind of how much rain they needed to handle. There's been a lot of development in our region since a lot of these systems were put into place, and what that does is it means that there's less place for that water to go when it falls, right? So when the rain falls, you know, trees, they love the water, you know, grass, other, you know, vegetation, they soak up a lot of that water when it falls, but we've paved over a lot of those places. We have a lot more impervious surface now, and so it's going into that stormwater system. It's not being infiltrated somewhere else into the natural environment.
Yeah, when you get these storms that drop 2 to 4 inches of rain in an hour and a half, I mean, the plants can't take care of that.
Well, the plants can't.
It's just too much.
You're right. The plants can't, and the pipes can't keep up, right? That water's got to go, you know, it's getting funneled in to just a system that has a certain amount of volume that it can hold, a certain amount of capacity, and once that capacity gets exceeded, then it just starts to pool up, and you probably see, you know, if you drive around here, you'll see areas where the water starts to pool after a rain event, where it sticks around for a few hours maybe sometimes. So yeah, it's got to go somewhere, and you know, with flood insurance, what that means is, like, you know, even if you do get flooded, if your house gets flooded, that the damage is covered, that you can file a claim and you can recover some of those losses. So
if I just take my chances and don't get flood insurance, because, you know, 1 in 100, that's not that much, and I do flood, I'm responsible for the cost, and about how much could that be? Well,
1 inch of water in your home can cause about $25,000 in damage.
Woo!
Yeah, 1 inch of water above the first floor of your property. So it's a lot to be on the hook for. And I know,
and that's just 1 inch.
That's just the 1 inch.
It'd be worse.
Well,
okay.
that first inch is usually the worst inch, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of people, you think the 1% doesn't sound like a lot. and it might not be this year and it might not be next year, but that's about a 26% chance over the course of a 30-year mortgage that you'll have at least one of those storm events.
Yeah.
So if you think about when you buy your property, you buy your house, and you've got that mortgage that you signed for 30 years, you're going to be there. There's about a 25% chance, 26% chance that one of those years you'll get an event that will cause that level of flooding.
So how much does flood insurance cost?
Well, it varies quite a bit, and that's a tricky subject. The best way to find out, it is changing. The best way to find out is to call your insurance agent. They will be able to run a quote for you. It's the same person that would do your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance. They all provide, most of them work with FEMA. They actually are the ones that are servicing the loans. It's a FEMA policy. It's a National Flood Insurance Program policy, but it's serviced by a private insurance company. So if you call your agent, ask them, or even you can go on their website sometimes and you can request a quote and they'll send you one right away, or at least, with not too much time between when you ask and when you get it. But yeah, it does. The cost does vary. For some people, it can be extremely affordable. We're talking a few $100s a year, depending on the level of coverage. For other folks, it can be in the thousands of dollars a year. It really depends on kind of where you are, how old your property is, how big your property is, how much coverage you're trying to get, and also just some other factors that FEMA puts into or considers when they're thinking about the risks of the overall program itself.
Okay, so speaking of FEMA and risk, those calculations have changed within the last year. So some people who are renewing are going to see a different number. Why? So
the why behind that is that there's the science about we understand kind of which areas are vulnerable to flooding. That's gotten better. FEMA has run into a number of issues over the last few decades where the National Flood Insurance Program has gone into debt. There have been some pretty big storms, and so they know that there's not enough money in the program right now. They're still in debt, and so we are all paying for that right now through Congress and whatnot. But the overall goal with what they're calling Risk Rating 2.0, this is the new system, is to go from it where you would have just a large zone that was the primary factor that would determine how much you would pay, and everybody in that zone was paying the same rate, to where you actually have a rate that's calculated based on the actual risk of your specific property. It's tied to your location, the condition of your home, and how big it is, how high the replacement cost is, all those individual factors that go into determining what your individual risk is. And so it's supposed to be more equitable. I think they're still kind of working out some of the kinks in that new system, but everyone that's, when you're renewing right now or you're getting a new policy, it's all based on that new Risk Rating 2.0 methodology. And so I imagine there are a lot of people that are getting a letter in the mail right now about their renewal, and they're probably, they might be a little confused.
Yeah, I looked at the stats for Hampton, and according to what FEMA says, half of the people in Hampton will pay more and half will pay less. But a lot of those, it's small percentages, but there are some people on the ends.
Yeah, well, it's small right now. So, there are a lot of questions about kind of how costly flood insurance will get over the years. Right now, there is an 18% cap per year that Congress has put in place. So if your rate is going to go up, it's limited to only 18% per year. But it's really hard to forecast how high that rate's going to get, because FEMA goes in and they recalculate what the different base rates are every year to make sure they're keeping up with the cost.
Well, and I will say, I don't know, I know all the other localities do something, but there are things your city can do, and in Hampton we do, to lower that premium a little bit. We do a lot of education, a lot of workshops, getting people prepared, making them more resilient to flooding, so that at least gives people a little bit of a discount. Yeah,
there's this program called the Community Rating System, which is actually part of the National Flood Insurance Program, and what it does is it allows communities, so the city of Hampton, to join the program, and they implement a few kind of baseline policies and programs at the city level, and then they can adopt new other policies, other programs, things like outreach efforts, more sophisticated mapping work. They can put things online. They can put in place, zoning restrictions, or they can buy out properties that are flooded. And all those different actions, they get assigned a number of points. And depending on the number of points you get, that can give you a different class in the CRS and the Community Rating System program. And every class that you get is an extra 5% discount on flood insurance for everybody in that community now. And so I think Hampton, I want to say it's a 7. It might be a 6.
It's more than, the rate, yeah.
Yeah, the community. So the class is a 6 or a 7. I think it's a 7, but I'm going to get that one. I feel like I'm going to get that one wrong. But assuming it's a 7, that's a 15% discount.
We are at 15.
Yeah.
See, that's the number I know. I don't know the 6 or the 7.
15% discount. So that's great. You know, that's everything can be better. I think we actually have it class 5. I want to say James City County and Norfolk might be class 5. So there's a lot of work that can be done, but a lot of work that's already being done. And I think that's one of the messages that I try to tell people around here is like we're already doing a lot of great work on trying to manage water and trying to live with water better. But we can improve, but we're already well on the way to doing so.
So one of those regional efforts is called Flood Fluent. What does that mean?
So Get Flood Fluent.
We've been promoting it pretty heavily right now this time of year.
GetFloodFluent.org is a regional outreach effort that we've set up with all of our locality partners to try to just focus on this message that flood insurance is the best way that people can protect themselves and their families and their properties if an event happens. We try to just kind of narrow it down to that message right there. It can be affordable. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's not always affordable for everybody, very affordable.
But let's all realize that being flooded is not affordable either.
Absolutely, right.
It's a tough choice.
It's understanding that, wherever it can rain, it can flood, especially in a place like Hampton Roads where, we've just talking about some of the issues we have with stormwater management. We're right here on the coast. We're very exposed. We're very low. And so having those, just that key message there that says, we're vulnerable, understand your risk, and more likely than not, having a flood insurance policy is probably the best idea for you.
All right, so one last question. I'm a procrastinator.
Okay.
I wait until that storm is identified in the Atlantic. Then I call my insurance agent. What happens?
Bad idea. Yeah, there's a 30-day waiting period on any new flood insurance policy. And so really the best time is yesterday, but today would be a great day to go and make that phone call. And it's hopefully, it's probably going to be a little bit cheaper than you think, but you don't want to wait until there's a storm, especially until there's a named storm.
That's right.
That the weatherman's telling you about. We don't want to go on Wavy or WTKR and hear about it and then call up and get a new policy. It's too late.
For that storm, at least.
For that storm, right.
It's still a good reminder, though.
It is, absolutely. And, every once in a while I'll go and I'll look at the National Hurricane Center maps and I'll see what's over there by Africa, because that's where it starts, right?
I don't want to look, man. Until it gets close, I try to stay away. You're brave.
If you have a flood insurance policy, then you can rest easy.
You can afford to do that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. As much as no one wants to pay for insurance, it is there for the same reason you insure your car, you insure your house from theft or other kinds of things. So please do consider it, whether you are forced to by your mortgage company or not. Thanks for watching.